The images you're seeing are of the Serra Pelada in Brazil. It was, at the time, the largest open-air gold mine in the world. Literal tons of gold were extracted after a child initially found a 6-gram gold nugget in a river in 1979. The story that would follow would be one of greed, violence, and suffering. I want to take a look at the work of 3 photographers who documented the event, Alfredo Jarre and Robert Nickelsburg, who were both there in 1985, and Sebastiao Salgado, who was there in 1986. I want to start by showing you Jarre and Nickelsburg's work. Both offer breathtaking, establishing shots of the situation by contrasting the magnitude of the project with the tininess of the individual. This is, in my opinion, Jarre's best picture of the Serra Pelada. There's a clear separation between the foreground and the background. In the foreground, you see men carrying bags of dirt in order to sift through them outside the mine. A man, empty-handed, walks down, ready to fill another bag. In the background, you see the activity. You see where the workers in the foreground come from and go to. There's a story there, and it's presented as a fragmented image which perfectly captures the atmosphere of the situation. While Jarre exhibited lighter pictures, Nickelsburg went darker, often emphasizing on the earthiness of the mine. Many of his pictures show sequences of workers, how little breathing space they had to work with. However, my favorite work by Nickelsburg isn't these claustrophobic shots, but this one. It's a portrait of a man with an empty bag wrapped around his wrist, which allows us to assume that he's descending into the mine. Covered in mud, his clothes ripped, veins protruding from his arm as he clutches on a ladder for his life, this man looks up at us in front of the mine. He embodies the mine. He becomes, to the viewer, the personification of this mine, of this situation. Now, let's look at Sebastiao Salgado's work. Before becoming a photographer, Salgado was an economist, having earned a PhD in France. His activism as a leftist influenced his work, paying homage to workers in his book, Workers, an Archaeology of the Industrial Age, 1986 to 1992, presenting 3,131 photos in 26 different places in the world, or more recently, Genesis, which pays homage to the earth and its environment. When he arrived at the Serra Pelada in Brazil, his home country, he's said to have felt goosebumps. Standing on the edge of the hole, he was taken aback by the human activity he was witnessing. He had never seen anything like it. He was witnessing, he said, humanity's history. Pyramids, the Tower of Babel, King Solomon's mines, thousands of people working with only the force of their bodies. And perhaps unlike with the other photographers, Salgado's photographs seem timeless. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's something more than simply the fact that it's in black and white. This photograph best exemplifies this. It's really hard to put into words, but this stream of workers seems endless, as if it started from the dawn of time and still keeps going. It shows more than Serra Pelada, but the vigor of humanity. Salgado went down these ladders, explaining that if one person falls, everyone behind them falls as well. He witnessed people dying that way. He also witnessed fights, brawls, and conflicts with the authorities. However, despite the terrible conditions, the risks of being murdered, of falling down a ladder, of having parts of the mine collapse on you, these workers were there because they wanted to be there. Swept along by the winds that carry the hint of fortune, men come to the gold mine of Serra Pelada. No one is taken there by force, yet once they arrive, all become slaves of the dream of gold and the need to stay alive. Once inside, it becomes impossible to leave. It's easy to assume that these men were akin to slaves, but as Salgado would point out, there were intellectuals, college graduates, farmers. They were all there of their own volition. By saying that these men are slaves of the dream of gold and the need to stay alive, Salgado is unveiling a different kind of coercion. Not an explicit coercion that requires guns or chains, but an implicit coercion, the kind of coercion that drastically limits your options. Salgado is showing men ready to work in this mine, ready to work in terrible conditions, willing to put their lives at risk. And what for? For freedom from want. Salgado made a point of saying that these men weren't necessarily poor, they just wanted to escape the need to work jobs they hated. And this is the element of implicit coercion underlining these conditions, the fact that these workers needed to go through these hardships in order to escape the work a job you hate or starve dichotomy, a dichotomy many of you today might also feel stuck in. These workers went through these hardships to liberate themselves. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in photography and how art can intersect with it, I did my first ever interview with the Raw Society, so if you think that can sound interesting to you, please check it out. And as always, I'd like to thank Roman Brandel, Mike Wex, and every other patron for supporting the channel. If you also want to support the channel and appear in the credits at the end of each video, you can donate $1 or more at patreon.com/thecanvas.